fascist genocidal ghouls, vaporized anarchist heroes. In Anarchist Works, Violent Socialist Anarchist, Peter Gelderloos explains, during the Spanish Civil War, guerrilla anarchist groups helped socialist governments defeat attempted fascist coups in Spain. That's right, not only anarchists, but anarchist guerrilla groups worked with socialists. And these guerrilla anarchists didn't just help socialist guerrillas, they fucking fought to maintain socialist governments. It makes some level of sense, though, because anarchists tend to be anti authoritarian across the board, including both governments and corporations. Contrary to what some dumb public intellectuals and political pundits say, socialism does not equal authoritarianism. And also, classic anarchists, unlike if fucking anarcho capitalists, were against governments and corporations. They didn't think that corporations are magical and mystical and godlike. Anyway, however, the most authoritarian end of the socialism spectrum is clearly communism, but socialism itself has virtually nothing to do with that. Anyway, most socialists are not okay with communism, but even to commies, fascism is the wrong type of authoritarianism. It's still government authoritarianism, but it's more right wing and less anti capitalist, obviously. Even though anarchists are generally opposed to both fascism and socialism. Particularly, the lefty anarchists prefer socialism to fascism. Many socialists would also prefer anarchism to fascism. Anarchists hate fascists far more than socialists, and socialists hate fascists far more than anarchists. This also makes sense for anarchists. That's because, somewhat similarly to Peter Gelderloos, a lot of the original anarchists were disillusioned European and Russian socialists who became both violent and nonviolent socialist anarchists. These include Emmett Goldman, Bakunin, Kropotkin, and others. There are many famous ones. Anyway, the anarchist guerrillas allied with the socialist Spanish government to disembowel fascist coups closer to the start of the Spanish Civil War, before the tide turned for the worse later on. The main conflict from 1936 to 1939, of course, centered around Republicans and the Nationalists. In this case, the Republicans kind of represented the lefties, while the Nationalists kind of represented the righties. The Republicans included socialists, communists, and anarchists. The Nationalists included monarchists, conservatives, and traditionalists. The result of this war led to Spain's involvement in World War II. The Nationalists and Fascists won the Spanish Civil War against the Republicans, Socialists, and Anarchists in 1939. The Spanish military general, who was the leader of the nationalist forces, Francisco Franco Bahamonde, became the dictator of Spain until his death in 1975. When Franco gained power, he set up forced labor, concentration camps, and executions. Combined with deaths during the Civil War, he was responsible for about 100,000 to 200,000 person mass genocide of already defeated fucking political opponents, along with anyone who supported them. Fucking ruthless shit. During the Spanish Civil War, Italy and Germany supported Franco's nationalists and fascists. This is why, during World War II, Franco maintained the neutrality of Spain on paper, but he still supported the Axis. I'm sure that I don't even need to mention the unimaginable evils conducted by the Axis during World War II, or the millions of needless deaths across the world done by both sides to both good and bad people. So, during the Spanish Civil War, guerrilla anarchist groups helped socialist governments defeat attempted fascist coups in Spain. This union actually makes sense in spite of how counterintuitive it might look to many of us today. Anarchists hate fascists more than socialists, and socialists hate fascists more than anarchists, especially back then. Many of the original anarchists were disillusioned European and Russian socialists who became both violent and nonviolent socialist anarchists. The Spanish Civil War mainly involved the Nationalists versus the Republicans. The Nationalists were led by the infamous future dictator Franco. It included fascists, monarchists, conservatives, and traditionalists. The Republicans included socialists, communists, and anarchists. The Republicans beat back attempted nationalist coups for a long time, but Franco eventually overthrew them, won the Spanish Civil War, and became the country's genocidal dictator until his death decades later. He killed as many as 200 motherfucking thousand people. That's not millions, but it's obviously still phenomenally fucking atrocious and an enormously large number of people. Also, since, like I said, since Italy and Germany supported the nationalists in the Spanish Civil War, Franco supported the Axis during World War II. This obviously led to the unnecessary deaths of millions of people across the entire world. This is all why fascist genocidal ghouls vaporized anarchist heroes.